Today we are talking about our friend Elon Musk. He's a guy that no matter what you think of him, love him or hate him, and the strong feelings on both sides, this guy is deep in the AI space. And here today we're going to be talking about Elon Musk is actually suing OpenAI and its CEO, as we know, Sam Altman. So this lawsuit is actually filed right on March 1st, and it says that OpenAI is deviated from its founding mission, prioritizes profit over the development of AI for the benefit of humanity. And as you also probably know, that Musk was one of the early backers of OpenAI, and sort of had this when it was a very different kind of concept. And now, again, Elon Musk has taken these way crazy turns. We have to stop AI. Now I'm going to create Grok all over the place. But this one really had our attention today. Jade, what was your take on all this?
Yeah, this is definitely you feel like the plot thickens kind of moment. It's funny because there's been a lot of lawsuits. Obviously, in the AI space, this thing's making.
This episode is brought to you by Kia's first 3-row all-electric SUV, the Kia EV9, with available all-wheel drive and seating for up to 7 adults, with 0 to 60 speed that thrills you 1 minute and available lounge seats that unwind you the next. Visit kia.com/EV9 to learn more. Ask your Kia dealer for availability. No system, no matter how advanced, can compensate for all driver error and or driving conditions. Always drive safely.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Millions of dollars. I would argue that AI is literally single-handedly holding up the U.S. economy. Maybe it's just NVIDIA doing it. If you've seen the meme of it's Atlas, the god or whatever, and he's got the globe on his back, and it's he's NVIDIA and the globe is entire U.S. economy. So yeah, without a doubt, this is probably making the biggest impact. And when there's this much money going around, there's a lot of lawsuits. So there's been lawsuits, Midjourney getting sued for the images that they use, and the New York Times suing OpenAI for including their articles and their train set. There's all the the lawsuits for money. This one to me strikes me as one of the very most interesting lawsuits in this, and that is because, of course, Elon Musk. And I'll give a little background on this, but beyond just being one of the early founders and funders, he was kind of one of the people that pushed to have OpenAI created in the first place. So the story that he's told is he was sleeping on the couch of, I think, Sergey Brin, the Google founder, and Sergey was talking about how, they just acquired DeepMind, which was, a London-based AI kind of research firm. And it really was a majority of the top researchers were working there. So when Google made that acquisition, I think they owned or controlled, or whatever, however you want to say, 70 to 80% of the AI researchers in the world. So Google became all of a sudden this huge AI powerhouse, and Sergey was talking to Elon and was saying, how they were going to create this superhuman godlike AI, and it was going to be crazy. And Elon's like, oh yeah, that's crazy. You should probably make sure it, it's number one priority is humanity. And then Sergey was like, whoa, are you being speciest? The AI, can do whatever it wants. And it was just, there's this weird conversation, and Elon kind of got freaked out, and he's like, yes, I am speciest. I want humanity to be the winner. I don't want Google, because he didn't really like the vibe he was getting there. He's like, I don't want Google to be controlling this. So it's kind of funny because Google is floundering so much, but that's another podcast in the AI space. But in any case, so Elon goes, and beyond just giving, I think it was $100 million, beyond just giving $100 million to kind of get OpenAI started, he kind of used his background and his network as leverage to get the original big players onto the AI team. I'm pretty sure Karpathy and then a bunch of these other guys, he went and recruited them. He got them to work for OpenAI. He met up with Sam Altman and got this whole thing going. So there's of course been the whole controversy of later on he was on the board, but then he stepped off the board because he said Tesla was doing a bunch of stuff with AI. But I think a lot of people say he was didn't like the direction the company was going, not being a nonprofit, whatever. So there's this whole thing. And then for the last year, he's kind of been whining and complaining on X about, oh, they're turned into like a for-profit. And everyone kind of thought he was just sitting there complaining. He started his competitor Grok. But now it seems more than complaining. He seems that something was done seriously wrong, and he is opening up the lawsuit to actually sue them on this.
Yeah, I mean, and Gene, this is what that's a good breakdown, and it gives a little bit of the background. I think it was in Elon Musk's biography, this story of like, yeah, whoever it was, sort of saying like, yeah, well, this being speciest, and I'm like, I'm on Elon's side on this. Like, I'm like, why are we sort of like arguing like that it can do whatever it wants? Like, you are human. What are we talking about? But actually, it really raises this interesting question about, let's take this lawsuit at face value for a second. Like, I'm like, as I sort of just, said a little earlier, there was that motion to sort of like stop all AI when GPT-4 came out or whatever. And Elon Musk was a signatory to that along with other folks saying, hey, we need a complete pause. But Elon strikes me as the kind of guy who just is, tends to get kind of bitter, brilliant and bitter. And just, like he would love to just kind of basically shut down OpenAI, but it sort of points to a deeper thing too, which is, usually if we are talking about, giant corporations, there's a tension between that, fiduciary duty to make profit, for its shareholders and everything like that. And, what's good for the planet, what's good for the environment, what's good for people, all that kind of stuff, right? So Walmart is in the thick of all these kind of conversations, for example. But with AI, you actually legitimately have, big players in this space also caring deeply about humanity, right? I mean, like Anthropic was built off the back of this idea that, hey, listen, we have to really protect humanity first. And that's why they have this weird board structure. Same with OpenAI. That led to all the kind of the palace coup over at OpenAI as well, because they had this nonprofit that's like at the center and then as a controlling members of the board saying, well, we think it's getting too dangerous. I mean, again, that's not like a fringe, sort of interest group saying, hey, we have to be better to the environment, things like that. This is like right at the center. And Elon Musk, I'm getting whiplash from watching Elon Musk, right? Because at first he's like, all AI. And then, no, shut it all down. And then, oh, by the way, here's Grok. Welcome to Grok. And now it's like, actually, you know what? OpenAI really is going to harm. So it's sort of like whiplash, but also that tension between, is this going to get too powerful? And the people who have the control having those debates inside the leadership of OpenAI, Anthropic, Microsoft, everywhere else, Google, everywhere else. And Jaden, when you're looking at this, like, just to me, this feels like one of the reasons when people say we don't know where this is going to end up, it's exactly because of that tension. Like, if we start to get closer to AGI, does somebody like hold kind of quote unquote like hold the plug? Does one company spur out ahead? I just don't know what to make of Elon's thing and all this whiplash,
Yeah, I think you have a good point there. Okay, so a couple good points. First, like Elon getting bitter. Yes, I definitely think there's like an element of that. I would also argue almost anyone put in his position, if you give $100 million to a nonprofit company and then it turns to for-profit, and he didn't want Google to control it, and now it seems like Microsoft controls it. So I would say that definitely makes sense. Bitter, sure, but like justified, probably. What I think is interesting here, though, is kind of, and I see this kind of narrative too in like news where it's like, yeah, Elon Musk is kind of like this whiplash back and forth all over the place kind of thing on this topic. But what I would also say is it feels like the whole industry's this way. Like you mentioned, like OpenAI's literal internal, like, their internal founding team is like firing Sam Altman and bringing him back. And it just feels like, we've come to this place where this technology is so insane. It is so impactful. It is so innovative and disruptive that like the companies creating it and the people running them are like very skittish and afraid of it. Right. And so I think, that's kind of some context. But what I did want to go into is something that is actually in this lawsuit, because I think this is really fascinating. I think overall, Elon's big qualm, and there's a for-profit to the nonprofit. I think Elon's big qualm at the end of the day, beyond just that, because, they switched from a nonprofit to a for-profit like a while back. Elon was on their board. He kind of stepped down at the moment, but he doesn't open a lawsuit against them. He wasn't fighting them. I think what really he's upset about is that Microsoft is now the controlling, it owns 50% of this company, so that essentially controls OpenAI. It's kind of like OpenAI is now a subsidiary of Microsoft. In today's environment, there's almost no way that Microsoft could have acquired OpenAI because it would have just gotten blocked. So then this kind of like invest and own 50% of it was kind of a good strategy. So to Microsoft's credit, genius investing strategy. You got around the regulators. But I think that's where Elon's concerned. So let me read something from this lawsuit, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. It says, quote, OpenAI Incorporated has been, this is, I think, Elon speaking in this, OpenAI has been transformed into a closed source de facto subsidiary of the largest technology company in the world, Microsoft. Under its new board, it is not just developing, but it is actually refining an AGI to maximize profits for Microsoft rather than for the benefit of humanity. Contrary to the founding agreement, defendants have chosen to use GPT-4 not for the benefit of humanity, but as proprietary technology to maximize profits for literally the largest company in the world. OpenAI Incorporated's once carefully crafted nonprofit structure was replaced by a purely profit-driven CEO and a board with inferior technical expertise in AGI and AI public policy. The board now has an observer seat reserved solely for Microsoft. Okay, so this is Elon Musk on that. I would love to hear your take on that.
Isn't this so interesting though? It's right, because it really depends on what you believe about what the good of humanity is, right? I mean, because I don't think it's easily sort of structured. And look, yes, I am at a business school, so maybe that sort of like outs me a little bit, but I also just really believe that this, obviously AI is the future. AI is now everything like that. I believe that you can't grow this to the point and sort of like grow the technology to the point that it will really benefit humanity without profit behind it, because that's what drives this forward. So I'm, a pretty close observer, as are you, Jaden, of OpenAI, and I've actually really been very impressed, not just by their tech, but just how they sort of handle things, right? I mean, like, especially when, the board was decided, like, okay, we're going to shut this down because it's sort of moving too fast, all that kind of stuff. And I keep thinking, like, moving too fast for who or what? I mean, we're talking in such theoretical terms. And this is the problem with like something like Walmart, right? Like Walmart can have this like really detrimental impact on the environment, things like that. On the other hand, if you are a poor person living in America, Walmart is a saving grace. I mean, like, you can walk into Walmart and know that you can afford stuff. So like, make that argument for me. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's really tough. So I see, I don't see sort of somebody at the top of OpenAI and sort of like its moral compass, which is Sam Altman at the moment, looking like, oh, how can we maximize profits without worrying about humanity? I just don't see that. And maybe it's a gut check thing. But look, when you're sort of like driving toward, oh, well, maybe we're going to make a device and maybe we're going to do like, sort of like cold fusion and all that kind of stuff. And yes, selling to Microsoft. I see these things as really benefiting humanity. Are they benefiting an individual? Yes, absolutely. But when we're talking about job creation and changing the way people live and everything like that, in the same way technology tends to really accelerate during war, that's not a good thing, but it's driven by a deep necessity, not just sort of like researchers in a lab saying, hey, how can we bring AI into the forefront? And I will say that there was a decision made back in November of 2022, I guess, to sort of like put ChatGPT kind of like out into the wild, so to speak, right? There was tons of research being done behind the scenes, but I don't think that there's been anything like the acceleration in AI that's happened before that, as we've seen in the last 12 months, just because now the consumer's like, what's next? What's next? What's next? And I see that as benefiting humanity. So I would like to kind of like understand from somebody, and Jaden, I don't know if you have a take on this or whatever, but like, what do you mean benefit humanity versus making a profit? I just think that is a much blurrier line than people kind of give it credit for.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that I think there's a couple of weaknesses in this lawsuit. I mean, I'm no legal expert, but like just, I don't know what I would say logically. But at the same time, like, I completely understand the lawsuit. He gave him $100 million to do something. The company's doing something different. I think he's justified in suing them. And I do think that he brings up a couple good points. I don't know if he's going to win this, but I think he brings up a couple good conversations with this lawsuit. So I think there's some good, and then I think there's some weakness in this. What I think is, I'm going to read a couple of the requests in the lawsuit, and then I'll go over this. But one thing one of his demands in this lawsuit is an order requiring that defendants continue to follow OpenAI's long-standing practice of making AI research and technology developed at OpenAI available to the public. So, and also you brought this up, Connor. So essentially it's this concept of like, for the good of humanity, what does that mean, right? And like, I'm obviously a big proponent of capitalism. This is what, America is founded on, and I'm in business as well. This is what I think is fantastic. And so I think this company, like OpenAI, obviously has to make money in order to grow. This is why they switched to a for-profit. And so, yes, I understand, agree, and think that that's important. On the other hand, the tricky part is, even today, even to this day, they still have it set up where they're like, when we achieve AGI, and this is kind of like one of the noble things of OpenAI, and again, also why I kind of like them, they're like, when we achieve AGI, Microsoft has a carve-out where they do not get the AGI, like they get these tools we're creating now. And so this is the weakness, I think, in the lawsuit, is that I 100% think, like, what is currently happening, Microsoft gave them a lot of money, they helped accelerate it, they are integrating GPT-4 into every Microsoft product. Great. I think Microsoft deserved that. Anyone could have done that deal. It could have been Google. It could have been anyone else. But I think the tricky point is, like, at what point do we say we achieved AGI? Because when GPT-5 comes out, is it like, now it's AGI? Or it's like, no, it's not AGI yet. It's going to be AGI in the future. And do we, like, because no one really has a clear definition, does that just leave room, especially with Microsoft controlling 50% of the company and having a permanent board seat, for Microsoft to just permanently, like, at what point is this not Sam Altman's decision that we've achieved AGI, or the general population? At what point is Microsoft going to say, no, we've never achieved AGI? They just keep kicking the can. This isn't AGI. GPT-10, this is not AGI. It can't, like, beat the everyone in the world at, like, everything. Like, it's not AGI. So I think that's the sketchy thing, and I think that's an important conversation that Elon's lawsuit brings up. So here's the actual demands of the lawsuit, though, in relation to that. Number one, he said, for a judicial determination that GPT-4 constitutes artificial general intelligence and is thereby outside the scope of OpenAI's license to Microsoft. Elon is saying GPT-4 is artificial general intelligence. Mm-hmm. Microsoft doesn't get it. Okay, so that's his first one. The second one is for a judicial determination that Q and or other OpenAI next-gen large language models is development constitutes artificial general intelligence and is outside the scope of OpenAI's license to Microsoft. So also pretty much saying GPT-5 and what they've developed with Q, which is like better reasoning, is outside. So I don't know. I'd be curious to get your opinion on this, Connor, but I think there's some good and some bad in this.
Yeah, no, 100%. And this is the big question, right? Like, when AGI is achieved. I think as we get closer to it, it's more and more people are realizing we're probably not going to know when it happens. I think like back like a year ago, it would have felt like, oh, this thing like opens its eyes and all of a sudden here it is. And I remember the interview that Sam Altman did with Lex Fridman back in like almost a year ago at this point. Great interview, even now, if you go back and listen to it. But there was a moment where Sam Altman paused and he asked Lex Fridman, do you think GPT-4 is AGI? And Lex Fridman kind of like thought about it. He's like, I don't think so. And Sam Altman's like, I don't think so either. But like, what kind of conversation is that? Like, where they're just like, I don't think so. So I don't think it is either. I think it's, there's too many sort of like holes in it and all that kind of stuff, and whether GPT-5 would be it or not. But even just the fact that we are, I think, what you're talking about, Jaden, the quotes you're bringing up, is actually a huge question, which is, are we even going to know when we've passed this Rubicon, crossed this Rubicon? Because it's already crushing Turing tests and things like that. That is probably my big take. But besides, like, Elon Musk is just a constant source of sometimes dangerous entertainment, but just generally speaking, we love talking about him because I think he's a brilliant guy. But also, I have my issues with Elon. But I think that's one of the big things that come out of this, which is, okay, answer the question, what is AGI? That's interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm super interested to see where this goes. Something that a lot of people have been commenting on Twitter is that they're like, the discovery on this lawsuit are going to be really interesting, yes. Meaning they can go through Sam Altman, OpenAI's, all of their emails, tweets, texts, conversations, private and public, and that is going to bring like a lot to light. So, I mean, if nothing else, and like, I don't think, like, a lot of people complain about this. I don't think this is bad. I know OpenAI is going to complain about it because inevitably when you bring up all of the like private conversations, there's like, oh, we didn't want people to know and see that. Like, obviously, whatever, I'm sure I wouldn't like someone going through all my private conversations on my phone. But I think in the context of this being like a really incredibly transformative technology that literally does impact everyone in the world, I think that I'm actually looking forward to the transparency there. And I'm sure it'll make people squirm. I'm sure it'll make OpenAI squirm and complain or whatever. But like, I think the discovery will be really interesting on this lawsuit. And it's just more transparency for the history books. And so we can understand exactly what went on and is going on. I think this is a good thing. At the end of the day, Connor, I think the big question is, when have we achieved AGI? Because technically that's when Microsoft's cutoff happens. And will we be at a place that we could actually tell Microsoft no? Because Microsoft right now, they are drinking the Kool-Aid. They are at all-time highs. They are one of the biggest companies. And it's funny because like Satya Nadella, like I think he seems like a nice, genuine guy. But at the end of the day, like this is a $1 trillion company. Like I'm under no pretenses that a nice guy running a $1 trillion company, there's not something like the general public and the government and whoever, right, has to still hold these companies accountable for being the most ethical possible. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It reminds me of like a lot of like in the government, there'll be big events that happen. Pick your event like RFK or aliens or all of these, typically what people call conspiracy theories, and they'll lock down the documents. They're like, you can't, because of privacy reasons, no one's allowed to look at these documents for like 75 years, or I think Epstein files, things like that, right? And at the end of the day, I think this is not where we want to go with this. We don't want to lock down the documents. We don't want Microsoft to control OpenAI for the next 75 years and say, don't look at stuff. We want transparency, I guess is what I'm saying. People have problems with that kind of government thing. And I think here we want transparency. So it's going to be interesting to see where this all shakes out.
The discovery question is a great one. Jaden, this gets me even more excited for that future podcast. I can't wait for that one.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much to everyone for tuning in. This was definitely a long, in-depth podcast. I'm sure there's going to be all sorts of opinions about this and controversies. We want to cover it, and I want to really, like, our big goal here was like reading some of those quotes out of the lawsuit so you know exactly what's going on beyond just what everyone's saying in the news or tweets or all over the place. Hopefully this commentary gave you some good insights. We hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day. Really appreciate you tuning in. If you could leave us a review wherever you listen to this podcast, it would honestly mean the world to us. We really appreciate all your support and hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day.